This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Not that long ago, there were still people who remembered the daughter of the Chasam Sofer. There were people who visited her, who got brachas from her. Amazingly, the Chasam Sofer was nifter in the year Taf Reish, 1840. And he had a daughter, Le'esik Nasai. Her name was Simcha. And this daughter of the Chasam Sofer was very short. And she would always cry bitterly that she was so short. And one time her father, the Chasam Sofer, noticed her crying. And he goes over to her, he says, Sheifula, why are you crying? She says, I'm crying because of my height. And the Chasam Sofer says, my dear, yes, in fact, you are short. But because of this, you will be zoichet ta'arichas yamim. And in fact, the Chasam Sofer's daughter outlived all of the Chasam Sofer's, all of the other children. And she lived until the year Taf Reish Ayin Aleph, 1911. She passed away at the age of 90. This daughter of the Chasam Sofer gave over the following story. She said that in general, it was very difficult to gaze for a prolonged period at the face of the Chasam Sofer. His face was so radiant, so bright. But she was meyed. That was the rest of the year. But she said, Leil Hiskadesh Hachag, the night of Pesach. It was efshar. It was impossible for the family to gaze directly at his face. The man was shining. The Shechina was on his face. You just couldn't look at it. The Avnei Nezer, Shalos Teshuvas Avnei Nezer, Eglei Tal, he writes B'Ksav Yad Kodshay. He writes about his father-in-law, the Kotzker, Reb Menachem Mendel Mikotsk, that the whole year the man looked like a malach. But Leil Pesach, he writes, he looked like a soraf. And by the second half of the Seder, the Avnei Nezer is made, there were zekukin, denurin, denafik mipume. There were literally sparks of fire that emanated out of his mouth. And what we would like to examine is Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halaylos. What exactly is it about the night of Pesach, of all the nights of the year, that it wasn't Leil Rosh Hashanah, it wasn't Leil Yom Kippur? What is so unique about the opportunity that is Haba Aleinu L'Tova, that as elevated as these tzaddikim were the entire year, it was the night of the Seder that their illumination was lifted to a completely different level? Who better to explain the madrega of the Chasam Sofer than the Chasam Sofer himself? If we examine the Haggadah Shel Pesach, and we know every word of the Haggadah is Kadosh V'Tahar, I just came across an amazing Sefer, the Sefer Ahavas Torah, and we mentioned it on a Shiur called Burst of Inspiration, that the author of the Sefer of Pinchas Ish Horowitz from Krakow, he writes in the 19th century, that many of the Sfarim discussed the various Ramazim and Gematrias of the name of Hashem, and he had a tremendous chukah, therefore, to count how many times Hashem's name is mentioned in the Chumash. He wanted to know exactly how many times does the Yud Kei Vav Kei appear in Chamishe Chumshei Torah, and one by one he came up with the number 1,820. Okay, very nice. But then he had this desire to count the words of Haggadah Shel Pesach. And Hafla V'Fela, how many words did he come up with that are in the Haggadah? Incredibly, 1,820. Amazing that the words of the Haggadah, this is from the beginning of Halach Ma'anya until the bracha at the end of the second kais, Gal Yisrael, amazingly the number of words of the Haggadah correspond precisely to the number of times the Yud Kei Vav Kei is mentioned in the Chumash. So we see that every word of the Haggadah is loaded. It's jam-packed with so much Kedusha, so much energy. And the question is then, such a holy work, why would the Haggadah begin Halach Ma'anya in Aramaic? Why not B'Lashon HaKodesh? Why begin in Aramaic? Says the Chasam Sofer, Halach Ma'anya, beginning in Aramaic, sets the tone and sets the mood for the entire Seder. Because says the Zohar HaKadosh, the night of the Seder, as we say over the Haggadah, and we sit together with our families, and we relate the events of Yetzias Mitzrayim, says the Zohar, we are not alone. We are not by ourselves. We are in the most exalted company. Because the Ribbono Shel Olam, b'chvoidoi u'v'yatzmai, together, with the entire Pamalya Shomala, he comes and he listens to our Magid. He comes and listens to our recitation of the Haggadah. Says the Zohar, the Seder is an epic rendezvous with the Borei Olam. Says the Chasam Sofer, the Gemara in Bracha says that one should not make personal requests in Aramaic, because the Malachi Asharis, who usher up the tefillos, do not deal with Aramaic. They don't understand Aramaic. But says the Gemara, when you're in the presence of the Chayla, you're allowed to daven in Aramaic. You know why? Because Shechina lemala mirashoisav shel Chayla. Because the Shechina is directly above the head of the sick person. So too says the Chasam Sofer. The Haggadah begins with Halach Ma'anya in Aramaic to signify the presence of the Shechina. The Ribbono Shel Olam is here. We don't need a minion to bring him. It's just us and the Borei Olam. And that's why we begin Halach Ma'anya in Aramaic, to set the tone of the Seder. We say in the Haggadah on the Pasuk, Uve Moira Gadol, the Bal Haggadah Darshan Zu Giloi Shechina. What's this referring to? What Giloi Shechina is this talking about? It says the Tfer Shlomo of Shlomo Radomsk. The Zohar says in Vayakel that every Chatzois Laila of the year, the Ribbono Shel Olam goes into Gan Eden, and you know what he does? He's mishtashea with the neshamas of the tzaddikim. Says the Zohar, v'kutshabrichu lesle niyacha ad de'al leginsa de'eden le'ishtasha b'nishmasay de tzaddikaya. There's no greater joy for the Ribbono Shel Olam than to rejoice with the neshamas of the tzaddikim the night of Pesach. The neshamas of the tzaddikim. But the night of Pesach, the Ribbono Shel Olam doesn't go into Gan Eden. The night of Pesach, Hashem goes out, B'soich B'nei Yisrael. Kechatzois halayla ani yotzei B'soich Mitzrayim. The night of Pesach, Hashem comes and sits at our table, and He's mizdabek to every Jew. And the Tfer Shlomo brings such a beautiful lashon. He says, the night of Pesach, Hashem Yisbarach, Kiviyachal, Mizdabek im kol echad v'yechad mibnei Yisrael. Hashem is clinging to every individual Yid the night of the Seder. Says the Tfer Shlomo, B'mayra Gadol, Zu Giloi Shechina. You know where the Giloi Shechina is? It's in our home. It's at our Seder. The night of Pesach, every Jew is privy to the great Madrega of Giloi Shechina. Gemara says in Pesachim, Kuf Hei Amud Beis. The Gemara uses a very unusual expression. It says the Gemara, Kizesa Pischa, V'hilela Paka Igra. A kazayis of the Korban Pesach. Hallel, it was so powerful, it's like the roof came off. Paka Igra, says the Avodas Yisrael, the Kashnetz Magid. The rest of the year, the Ribbono Shel Olam is Meitzitz Min HaCharakim. He's there, he's peering through the cracks, he's looking at us, but there's a separation. He's Me'achar Kosleinu. He's behind the wall, he's behind the roof. But the night of Pesach, Paka Igra, the roof has been removed. There is no Havdalah. There is no separation. It's us and the Ribbono Shel Olam, Panim al Panim. Clear the way. Clear the path. For whom? For the Ribbono Shel Olam. So the Shlach HaKadosh says, Kedushas Halayla Hi Kedusha Rabba B'ma'od. Roy la'adam lizayer shlo yedaber b'layla zu shum sichas chulin. The Shla writes to avoid idle conversation. V'hu uvnei beisai layu nifradim midveikus Hashem Yisbarach harega. Don't lose a moment of the opportunity. You know, the mitzvah of matzah is perhaps the most unique mitzvah we perform the entire year. All other mitzvahs, we do them. We wear a talis. We wear tefillin. We mouth words of tefillah. There's only one mitzvah where we take the chefza shel mitzvah and we ingest it. You don't eat your talis. You don't eat your tefillin. You don't eat your lulav and esrog. And you don't eat your sukkah. But you take the matzah and you ingest it and you digest it and you recompose your entire makeup from the mitzvah. This is an idea we've mentioned many times in Shiurim. I want to add a certain nekuda. Chasam Sofer writes, another Chasam Sofer, Choshen Mishpat, Simkuf Tzadivav, that mitzvah saseh shel achilas matzah mishumeres below Pesach, the mitzvah of eating shmura matzah, leil seder, hi yechida nisheres lanu mikol mitzvah achila shebechol haTorah. It's the only mitzvah saseh d'oraisa of achila the whole year. But this nekuda, that we take a chefza shel mitzvah and we actually make it part of our body. This type of mitzvah is viewed as such an intimate connection to Hashem that it brings light to light. The comment of the Yerushalmi, Kol ha'oichel matzah b'erev Pesach, ki'ilu ba al arusasa geves chanev. That achilas matzah is likened to a physical connection to Hashem, to an intimate connection to Hashem. That's why you can't eat the matzah prematurely, before the Yom Tov of Pesach, which is being likened to a marriage. It is a once-a-year opportunity to sit together with the Ribono Shel Olam. And that is why when the Seder is completed, many have a custom to recite Shir HaShirim, which is the outpouring of Ahava that Klal Yisrael has for the Ribono Shel Olam, and that the Ribono Shel Olam has for Knesset Yisrael. And this is the time to do it, the night of the Seder, when we enjoy this private audience with the Borei Olam. And maybe this gives us some insight into the sanctity that these great tzaddikim reached, Leil Seder. One could only imagine the burning fire of Kedusha that radiated and that emanated from the Holy Chasam Sofer, the night of Pesach, of someone who was in full recognition that he's sitting in the presence of Hashem. And this is exactly what we need to give over to our children. That this occasion is so important, so crucial, because everything that we relate the night of the Seder, this is what made us into a nation. This is what forged us. This is what everything our emunah and our Torah is based on. Tonight is the night that we create the next generation. Every Rosh Mishpacha, every parent, every Jew, tonight is filling the role of being one of the Balei Mesorah. You're creating the next link. And we tell our children not only the events of Yetzias Mitzrayim, but we make it clear. B'chol dar v'dar, oimdim aleinu l'chaleisenu, v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, atzilenu miyadam. And I hope to be able to give over to my children the night of Pesach, about how not so long ago, only 70 years ago, our grandfather, our great-grandfather, should live and be well, the Holocaust survivor, Rabbi Glatstein, who I speak about a lot, so Gesundsein, came to America after the war. He's been a Rav in Pittsburgh since 1951. And he endured the Gehenna of all the camps. And he witnessed the devastation of European Jewry. And he was in Auschwitz, and he was in Radom, and he was in all the camps. And as I've told over so many times, after the war, he was interviewed by the secular media. And they asked him, Rabbi, you were an eyewitness to the brutality of the Germans. You saw the devastation of your family, your brothers and sisters. Klal Yisrael. After what you saw, did you ever lose faith in the promises of the Torah? Did you ever lose faith in God? And my grandfather responded, did I ever lose faith? Of course I lost faith. I lost faith in humanity. How could the world stand by idly as 6 million lives were snuffed out? How could democratic countries turn the other way? How could the United States of America and Roosevelt bury their heads in the sand as if nothing was happening? So did I lose faith? Sure, I lost faith. I lost faith in man. But never for a moment did I lose faith in my God. My faith in God only became stronger. And a Jew never loses faith. And this is what we give over to our children. That even though b'chol dar v'dar oimdim aleinu chaloseinu, we tell them that our emunah is as strong as ever, and our commitment to the mitzvahs is as strong as ever. And we tell them that throughout the darkest times, Klal Yisrael is moiser nefesh for their ava, for the Ribbono Shel Olam. And the night of the Seder, our hearts are aflame with emunah, our hearts are aglow, our neshamas are stirring. And it's not only the Chasam Sofer, but the night of Pesach, every Yid is shining. Every Yid is radiant. Every Yid has the Shechina on his face. And who better to say it than the Chasam Sofer himself? Chasam Sofer writes in the Drashos, Muftachim anachnu, we are promised, afilu begolos, even in exile, Bisha she'anachnu yoshvim l'saper yitzias Mitzrayim levanenu. When we sit down to tell our children about what happened in Mitzrayim, lehashrish liboisam beyiras Hashem, we put roots of fearing God into them. Says the Chasam Sofer, azai shefa eloki aleinu. The bounty of God is on us. Every year, kemoi b'tzeisenu mi Mitzrayim. That the same way when Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, it was begiloi shechina. Every year, as we relate the events of Yetzias Mitzrayim, shefa eloki aleinu. And it applies to every single Jew. And we tell our children that just as Ribbono Shel Olam watched over us until this point, the Ribbono Shel Olam will continue to be with us. And very soon, sense it, we feel it, the Ribbono Shel Olam is going to do this again. He's going to redeem us again. And He's going to perform miracles for us, the likes of which no one has ever seen. And we show to our children that this is clear to us like the sun will rise. That just like we believe the sun will rise tomorrow morning, we believe that Be'ezras Hashem this year we will be Peduyin, L'Tzion, Berina, L'Shana Haba, B'Yerushalayim.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.